Hi, everyone. Welcome to January's Poetry Square. I'm Diane Funston, YubaSutterArts&Culture's poet in residence. And we have our monthly show that we bring you, myself and three other poets, to read and talk and basically share our poetry with you. And tonight we have three wonderful poets also. We have three gentlemen tonight, and I'm sure you'll enjoy them. I'd like to thank Yuba Sutter Arts and Culture for the opportunity to do this show, and it's brought to you monthly, and we can all relax and enjoy some poetry. I'm going to start us off with some poems, and um, here we go. So this first one is called Nostalgic Immunity, and kind of about memories. You know, as poets, we think a lot about memories and, you know, a little magic sometimes too. Memories, clearer than reality, less obscure than dreams, pressing one's face against the glass of a window that hasn't opened in years, perhaps even a home that no longer stands. Driving down streets, empty lots, boarded houses, taking a chance to be there in a neighborhood gone war zone. Shootings and shoot ups with no sign of the life before when I grew up there. I find myself wandering amongst traditions, false fantasies long dead, when holidays held hope, summer vacation was long, and the porch glider lolled back and forth with nostalgic immunity. I can't really go home again. Those who were there are no more. Those who tucked me in are buried beneath the grassy ground and the marble that names them. I find solace that memories lull me to sleep at night and keep me company during the daylight. And this next one is called Doubts. Something we all have. We all have our doubts. So doubts. They come at night. They come even if I don't answer them. They linger in the room like musk from unstuck lovers, clinging to sheets, to skin, to crevices. Like a curse, they come to me, uninvited. They come like those initiated by old fears. They are the ghosts of my lost redemption. They come in whispers, come in silence between thoughts, linked like spider webs on our foundation. What we do not see until it may be too late, and we question, fall for their siren song of our all so many doubts. And one of the things that I like to do is walk in the woods, and especially to go up farther north to the Humboldt County with the redwoods, which is a very spiritual place. And this is called Intention. Walking in forest under the canopies of ancient trees who have seen the best and the worst for centuries, who have felt drought and flood, windstorms and grave cold days, treetops that have tumbled, short roots turned up like tangled brown-haired elves, laughing faces one direction and snarl the other. Red and green havens climbed by bears, clear-cut by man, trucked horizontal as human corpses, sawn into boards to make homes for the intruders, after the original occupants lost theirs, despite the hugs from some who feared the future. I lay my head down on cool green moss to speak my intention, to do the small beneficial acts of kindness I can control, to support those who fight for our planet's renewal, mostly to do no harm. And this one is called Cleansing. I stand under the shower, feeling the forceful stream as it washes away the sweat from garden, morning walk, and the silence of the breakfast table. My bags packed with layers for predictions of weather in my hometown, a mishmash of warm to hot, always with the dependable glistening of humidity, even the blessings of rain. My mind swirls faster than dead skin and suds down the center drain, circling like Charybdis, pulling it down at once. Travel amidst COVID, my dear murdered dog, visiting friends and places, memories of dead family members more alive than some still living. You come in as I'm drying off, pull me to you, we tightly embrace. Find a little time to reconnect, surrounded by the paraphernalia of leaving. Afterward, we nap under the fan, so blissfully quiet and scented from water and seed. And that was a trip I took back in September, back to my hometown, Rochester, New York, to take care of some family business. And with that idea, I have sort of a fun poem, Don't Believe the Looking Glass. I feel young, strong, invincible. At my prime in my mind, I plan adventures big and small, say yes to invitations, stretch my calendar wide, not realizing commitments overlap, perhaps not even physically possible. Down on my knees on a pillow, I dig the soil and plant new upstarts, tamp the ground and tuck them in, bless them with the holy water of hose, feel like Venus in love with the garden, touching life into the xylem and phloem, the life force of my beating green heart. I visit my old haunts, the bedrock I grew up in, vacant lots where modest homes were friends long gone, first to suburban flight, then scattered or dead to the world. I grew past the place where my kind was bullied and misunderstood, head in the clouds, face in a book, finding home with others on the fringe, orphans looking for someone to notice. I stop the busyness to wash my face, stare into the mirror hard this time. Do I see truth in the reflection? Who is that 60-ish white-haired woman? No, it can't be. Time went so fast. Jobs, college, marriage, children, marriage, moving, how many times? Traveling, yes, so many great places. Economic turndown, retirement, house fire, pandemic, mother moving in to remind me you and I are nothing alike. I feel that and still mourn the losses, beloved family, the most recent pet death. So, no, the reflection doesn't tell the truth. She's tired, at times overwhelmed, overweight. I wink at her and smile like the old song, I was so much older then. I'm younger than that now. At least I feel that way on a good day. So this one is called Man in the Moon. I'll plant a pink dogwood tree next week. but not for my children. My sons will sell this house after I'm gone to grave. They'll want none of my collections. My garden may be plowed under, returned to wasteful, unimaginative lawn, fertilized, manicured, round-upped. My rocks and minerals, 2 big glass cabinets full, will be eBayed and auctioned to the highest bidder, despite the eons to form and my years to collect them. The glass curio of Mexican folk art, Dio de las Mortes, Catrinas and Catrines, skulls and fantasy animals, will cross the border of my home to be scattered to thrift stores along with never fading Talavera. Will the man in the moon still be there, along with lunar art, sculptures of Moon Mother received with love, gift from friends who knew my spirit, or the polar bears, spirit animal of my drive for solitude and strength? Books will be in the hands of strangers, all the poetry of the knowns and unknowns at their passionate words, brave insertions, the literature from brave new worlds gathering dust instead of discussion at the local Goodwill. So I'll plant the pink dogwood next week into my lush front garden, devoid of pedestrian lawn, amidst fruit trees and vegetable plots, succulents and redwoods. I'll live my life in the pleasure of my current joy, my lust for travel and adventure, until I too am plowed under, forever facing upward. Will the man in the moon still be there? And I just have a couple more. This one is called Midnight. Witching hour. The moon casts an opium haze along the paths of gravel along the river. I've been told never to enter those trails after dark, for they lead to intoxicating potions, exploration of arcane language, and fornication under hidden constellations. I part the veil of tree limbs. Looking up, I see 2 large crows, possibly vampires, perched atop coastal redwoods. Well hung on their branches, they turn their gaze to me, squawk and squint. Animated twig arms undo my dressing gown, an elixir pressed into my palm. My robe falls, revealing naked skin as smoky essence surrounds me. I'm dancing, whirling in semicircles beneath the night, under the spell of what spirit? The crows appear before me, lying in a mound of leaves. Their feathers are now velvet cloaks, softly brushing over me. A kiss, then rough against my neck. Another sharp at my nape. The folds of black velvet envelop me as darkness descends. Come morning, I awaken. Gather my gown around me. I am alone in the clearing by the river. Black feathers between my fingers, in my creases, a nakedness, a curious thing. I don't remember the night. Blood on my collarbone, dripping like candle wax. I run, reach the trailhead. Without looking back, I hear them, crows' raucous call from beyond. Mine, mine, mine. And I'm going to end with this poem. It's an Ars Poetica. It's writing about writing. Imagination is the geometry of the brain, co-author of both gods and demons, allowing them to sit on opposite shoulders, advise or consent, truth or dare, Would you rather go quietly safe or with a bang and a growl? We are all alchemists of our own prison bars. We forge the iron, disappointed it doesn't become gold. Perhaps it does, fool's gold. Don't underestimate the semi precious, for whoever does has not walked through crystal caverns or held a crown of amethyst. We add color and language to make meaning. We survive the blank canvas only if our minds draw etch-a-sketch rainbows without paint-by-number diagrams or mathematical formulas. Somewhere deep there is music, illumination without electricity, words without grammar or syntax. Write them down, keep them inside you, where all poetry comes from. Thank you very much. And now we'll hear from Craig Chury, coming to us from Scranton, Pennsylvania at the moment.
Craig, you're muted. Craig, can you hear me? Sorry, you're muted.
Okay. Craig Chury from Scranton, Pennsylvania, thanking you for joining us tonight and inviting me to be with you. Because I've been under lockdown for the past 2 years on the backside of Scranton, I'm going to read travel poems from Italy and Greece, and from my book 15 Stones, and a new collection, the Albanian Channel, new and selected poems. One has only to live long enough, and opa, anything will happen. Chury in Greece. For example, lost in Mexico, follow the barking dogs. Lost in Trieste, follow the gulls. In Bucharest, speak Spanish. Lost in Russia, pantomime. Montreal, follow the women. Here, I'm lost in Piraeus, following the smell of fish. I'm still jet lagged, but my feet are amazing. Ah, my beautiful, beleaguered feet. 2 years ago, hobbling around with a stick, I wouldn't have given a hangnail for. Now, watching where I shouldn't be going with my infamous primal hunter instinct. Here's what I wish for. Before the navigational stars take hold and proverbial black hole sucks me in, may I always have the wits to get lost and the skewed wherewithal to find my way back the same way, not the same way, all the way. Of everything that gets lost in a lifetime, of everything that eventually gets justified, turned to irony or black humor, of every way to go looking for reprieve or forgiveness. I'm propped up on my elbows out the open window, the train length of what used to be Yugoslavia. Three boys my age along the tracks are shooting us with stick guns. The field workers my age are cutting corn stalks with sickles, stacking them like teepees. A girl my age walks down to the well with a wooden bucket, lowers it on a rope. The grimace on her face when she pulls it full is pre-biblical. Of everything in this lifetime forgotten, my friend undresses for me in the dark, dropping her prosthetic leg inside her jeans. The thud. Waking up in a cemetery after chased by dogs across the railroad tracks, scaling the ancient stone wall, blood-caked nails. The swamp house with shadows of men walking around inside the water through its burnt-out floorboards. Of everything needed to be memorized or written down to be remembered. There is never enough vodka, never enough television. Of this, I need to say to you at this whatever unexpected moment, there is never enough bewilderment. I like walking past where people live, hearing music through their windows from another era. Carlos Gardel, Enrique Caruso, Edith Piaf, Robert Johnson. It's in my blood, like the ones who show up in my dreams. I have no idea who they are, but I always go with them just to listen to what they have to say. Then I carry their words into these writings. I give them credit if I knew their names, which is another reason my landlady intrigues me. She's a hypnotherapist. And I want to be hypnotized so I can move into one of my any other dimensions. Like moving to Italy isn't far enough. She tells me. Her husband translates. Language will make this impossible. But what language does the subconscious speak? Just get me under where all my real characters are, and so what? I'll come back speaking Italian, right? I think life is that simple. Like jumping up while the earth is spinning and coming down halfway around. Walking these dream alleys with the only comprehensible words guiding me in my head. There are ones who stand on myth and the mystic. There are ones who stand on dream. There are ones who stand on the laws that defy the laws of gravity. There are ones who stand on the path of least resistance, the principle that everyone is created from nothing equally, the scent between your legs. There are ones who stand in the light inside the dark behind their eyes. The ones who stand on nothing with nothing but everything in a naked look, a blank stare. That trance while waiting in line. The ones who stand in silence when pressed for a key. The vital signs of a solution. I know what that is, but I don't know how to say it. I'm going there now, but I'm standing on a hunch, a gut feeling. I'm standing on a figment of my imagination, a quirk, a fluke, a whim, my intuition of what it means to be standing in the ether, waiting for a sign to move into anyone's good guess. This is my town. I'm the mayor signing proclamations around a table in the shape of a casket. I'm the town drunk. I'm the police chief wielding the yellow star of David. I'm pest control running around with a butterfly net. I'm off my leash. I'm off my meds and I need a light. I'm the fireman whipping out my hose on Via Borgesera. I'm the doctor opening my blouse. I'm the town council outlawing different ways of thinking. I'm my old nag, my old crotch. I'm the teacher whacking my knuckles with a Catholic ruler. I'm the school board banning my books. I'm the disgruntled parent. I'm playing hooky. I'm groping avocados with no remorse. I'm playing dead mouth to mouth. I'm paying my bills writing rubber checks. I'm old enough to vote for all the names in my cemetery. I'm listening for my name to be called. Even God doesn't believe in God. So much more to grasp beyond understanding. I write this into every poem as the only reason I write. You can't keep up with the jazz, listen for the music. Just may be the pitch. Pitch with wonder, I learned from Satchel Paige. Pitch with amazement, I learned cross I learned thumbing cross country from traveling salesmen who pegged me for northeastern Pennsylvania. Wilkes-Barre, as soon as I opened my mouth. Not what I'm saying, but how I'm saying. Same difference last weekend in Estonia among Russians. I don't understand a word you're saying, man, but I get it. I get the gist. The air open between what you're actually saying and what I think you're saying. That's everything. Psychology for Dummies tells us at the moment of conception, you can't duck expectations. All you can do, like poetry, is bob and weave. The Sikhs are playing cricket in a park no American kid today could coordinate. And I'm there way back. The old guy sitting on the cement wall behind the catcher, shushing the missed ball back to the standby with a stick, or hobbling over to toss it back to him. Grazie, grazia. I'm in the game at a distance, feeling like Antonio Machado in that one photo perched on the head of his cane. Or maybe that displaced guy in Pavese's poem who later gimp off into the night with the forlorn translated what's her name smoking. They know I'm not Italian, the way I'm eager and watching. I've been biking around my neighborhood with my mitt strapped to the handlebars, looking for a game since a kid, looking for a moment, a way to fit in, looking for a way to catch the ball and toss it back that gets me that look, that head nod, that foreign feeling I can take home and keep to myself. This is my last poem. And I want to thank you all for listening. The poet's hunched over his camera screen. Excuse me. The photographer's hunched over his camera screaming, "That's it." The same moment, Big Nana shifts to her champion bowling pose. Miklos Radnati is being exhumed from a mass grave. Blood mixed with mud was drying in my ear. His last poem, I'm reading in the bulb flash, blood crushed from his overcoat, underdeveloped glimpse of Anna Akhmatova staring out of the torpor common to all of us in those days. Faint smile of the woman who gave birth to me, her lips blue from the cold. That was a time when the dead could smile. My old man exhales a plume of cigar smoke. The afternoon is all fallen plaster, black stones, dry thorns. The afternoon has a difficult color made up of old footsteps halted in mid stride. Yanis Ritsos coughs up a glob of tubercular phlegm. That's me, second to the left, spiking my flat top with the palm of my hand, squeezed between Kafka and Calvino, who prop me up between sense and direction. Of course, I'm late for school. Everything I need and reach for as I'm racing for the door breaks off in my hands. When I grab the door, it doesn't open. It doesn't open, and I wake up running through the neighbors' yards where women are hanging sheets on clotheslines. I brush, tangle, and pumping my arms, lift myself off the ground, up, clear of the clotheslines, clear of the power lines. I'm treading the air above a crowd of tiny people who are chasing me when I wake up standing in the wings of an auditorium, being introduced as a very important person I don't recognize, and I've grown a beard. Walking out across the stage, I'm not wearing any clothes. The house is packed with everyone in a tux or a gown with hairdos. I walk behind the podium feeling protected as I begin to read from a sheet of paper. All the words are mixed up, and what comes out of my mouth is gibberish. When I wake up peeing the bed, I'm covered with seeds. It's my birthday, and I'm 50 years old. All my friends are teenagers. Thank you, and good night from Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Hey, so yeah, thank you to Diane for inviting me to Poetry Square. This is amazing to be reading with Craig and Rick. These guys are phenomenal. And Diane started us off setting the bar high, so that was amazing, Diane. Yeah, just a couple of things about myself. I've been writing for a while now, for many decades, but more so in the past few years, 4 to 5 years. Published some stuff in some anthologies, the Rutherford Red Wheelbarrow 13 and 14, and Sensations magazine supplements 10 and 11. Number 10 of which was themed on global warming, and I was that was my first representation there, and I was awarded first prize for newcomers for the global warming, which I'll read a piece tonight, and just some stuff on the local library at Matawan, Aberdeen, for pandemic poems and stories. So I'll start off and just I'm influenced by everything from mythology, classical poetry, contemporary poetry, sci-fi, comic books, and let's face it, heavy metal lyrics. Okay, so so with that, we'll get started. So this first piece is one of the global warming poems that was published a couple of years ago in Sensations magazine. It's called "The Planet's Quiet Exhale." The planet's quiet exhale, now a cough, now we choke on the fumes of inaction. Like the withdrawn tide siphoning to release with fury, its building surge, it pauses its immunity to shed the contagion of our greed like a fever. By flood and by fire, we perish, purged by particular calamity. The earth cycles and for ephemeral millennia reconditions for unborn generations that will never come the opportunity to forgive us the impulses of the past. In the lengthy interim of transitioning breath, the locusts will swarm in seasons of permafrost thawed, and graveyard reefs will court the coral white of ocean warmed ghosts and bones. So that was a shorter piece. This second piece I'm going to do is a pretty long piece. It's in 4 parts. And normally I just read 1 or 2 parts, but I'm going to see if I can read the whole thing and then end with some shorter pieces. So this is called, this I wrote during the initial phase of the pandemic and lockdown and all that. So this is in April of 2020. It's called Post-Apocalyptic Interpretations of the Pandemic, a precautionary tale in 4 parts. 1, and the epigraph reads, "Facts are much less frightening than ignorance and rumors." And that's Christian Amanpour, air date March 16, 2020. Guidance Protocols, Day 3, Social Distancing and its Challenges for the Close Talker. Despite best practices, societies reverted to mechanisms of discreet foraging. The general public, left to their last resorts, resorted to melancholy vagabonds, subsisting and deprived of ubiety. Staying sharp and not too close, their scheduled destinies postponed until further notice. But upon further inspection, the coordination of logistics was a bitch. Casting aspersions aside, you keep your social distance, the new unspoken courtesy triggered by the signal of wary eyes, secretly gauging your suspicious measure with a glare, belaying bad habits. Social creatures urged to isolate, immediate families closer knit, huddled in close quarters, while lone inhabitants suffer the recommended sentence in solitary confinement. Isotopes on cargo hold manifest, procured to fill the void left by stockpiles of mental anguish as the mind manifests and grapples with abandonment. In memoriam to the expired and the ringing tolls across a curvature of rising tides, named as numbered cases, but more than that in name and in life, on no occasion non-essential. To the rest of us, adhere to diligent practices and stay clear of swerving on that statistical curve sheltered in a fitting place. Recall the familiar faces refreshing from across kitchen tables, jesting with exaggerated gestures of refusal. Please don't pass the salt. A flashcard communique for the new millennium family, a stinging dose of seasoned reality to calm the surmounting hysteria, stinging with clarity like a slap to the face or a snap on the wrist, kept close and always sharp like a valuable pain. 2. With closed eyes, I see worse things. That's the Miranda character from Pale Horse, Pale Rider, Catherine Ann Porter, 1939. Guidance Protocols, Day 7, Supply runs, impulse buys, and 1 per customer per day. Masked marauders on frontiers of surreal fantasy, like recurring ghosts disturbed, greet each other with eye courtesy, tongueless and ever suspicious, primed and readied in paint by numbers, avoiding proximity. Drop down the makeshift mask, cowboy bandana, at a sociable distance, and motion with eye direction so as not to spray spit with unnecessary speech. At a late hour, days before the evening curfew was executed, patrolling eyes scan barren shelves, and worse, barren aisles void of patronage. Overhead, a soothing but robotic feminine voice emanates to broadcast calming and compliant advisements like some future dystopian movie, putting you eerily at ease. With apparent caution, you approach your cashier, a supermarket associate on the front lines, segregated behind a clear wall of riot shield plastic, protected from your exhaled assault. Oncoming hospital vicinity street signs now warn healthcare workers fraught to serve their calling, but not at the expense of the child coping in distress while black market PPE thrives on the scales of a moral economy tipped. Though denying purists defy ubiquitous quarantine as conspiracy, chanting a mantra of social engineering that would attempt to facilitate their unauthorized transaction. Something about prying from cold dead hands. In adapting to new calamity, overall, we commit to act as the responsible citizenry within a global commonality to be obsessively compulsive in disorderly fashion. Like all things glorified, we admire the portrayal of ghosts until their disturbing imagery tortures us with recurrent hauntings. 3. Keep your eyes open and listen to the science, the experts, and the evidence. And that's also Christian Amanpour, air date March 16th of 2020. Guidance Protocols, Day 13, Strategic Maneuvers for Dealing with Panic During the Pandemic Crisis. Reporting from the press pit, 2 empty chairs apart, here to swallow unsolicited, aggrandizing, or unprovoked diatribe in the absence of sharply altered graphics. Assured by fireside spats of the excessive washing of hands of all this. Trampled flowers underfoot, unseen, are undying. Isolation, curfew, shutdown, voluntary measures mandated.gov in our best interest and against our better nature. Millennium underlings, years ahead of the curve, are already nestled in a learned and remote force employed to take the evolutionary leap, fully transitioned within the embrace of emerging technology. All the while, beyond the overload of network buzzing across power lines, a lifting fog of rush hour traffic apparitions unveils highway congestion thinned to near empty. Bereft of non-essentials, the populace recast to the set locations of drive-through test kit parking lots, cordoned off by lane cones and instructed by the muffled commands emitting from yellow hazmat garb wielding nasal swabs. A panoramic aspect ratio of surreal cinema. Pandemonium, the new abode. Informatics for the new normal, curbing novel crises for the new age. A blacklist extinction enabled at the behest of barons of broken things and blame inherited with hubris enough to lay claim to accomplishments to date never attempted nor imagined. In Greenwich, meantime, hourly processions float one after another, each one a pall of blue covering up the ramps of refrigerated trailers to become a closer gathering in the stillness, averse to the advice of living habits. Somewhere, an undying flower plagued by hope blooms into life, unseen under isolation tents. 4. Now there would be time for everything. And that's epigraph for the character Miranda from Pale Horse, Pale Rider, 1939. Guidance Protocols, Day 37, Channel Surfing and Channeling Tidings. Picked up the remote, held it pointed at the clock to check the time, or maybe to change it, hands depressing for the right angles. Statistics compile as the bodies pile, 58,000 American lives taken in a decade of Vietnam, toppled towards the 13th week of infiltration by the novel crowning virus disease discovered in the year 2019 AD, within the year lorded over by a vagrant entity of autonomous evolution, intent to divide or conquer. By strategic intervention, but for cooler heads to prevail asymptomatic and effect acceptable casualties for herd immunity, hopeful to avoid the provoked throng urge to ingest disinfectants. Though certain genres have speculated injecting ultraviolet could cure infection by vampirism. From the corners of turned down screens, the animated translations of sideline signing parallels the vigor of hand gesture cheering. The kids are welcome distractions until trying to tune in. The family living room sprawled with their pillows, blankets, and charging cables, site evidence of COVID campout for weeks. While the cat blends, melting into its favored cushioned arm, paws slung down like dripping molasses. Zooming through space and time zones, the common streets condemned to abandon for an isolation in exhibition. The cheering crowd muted, the air a captured silence in abundance. A repopulation of wildlife has taken notice of the vacancy, arriving in droves to fill the void, beckoned by the uninterrupted elongation of birdsong. A deer on Euclid Avenue props up its head as a dozen more calmly cross the street to graze beside it in noiseless daylight. Along Long Branch Beach, my eldest son, his eyes fishing, catches a glimpse in the sun-glinted surf. Dolphin heads greet the empty shores in waves, popping up in quick succession with approving nods to applaud the comeback of clear skies. Tried by an encounter out of thin air, we still strive to become better warriors for vanquishing sculpted enemies. And rising from the ground, gravel drops from the open palms it stuck to, leaving temporary indentations as tokens of smaller blessings for later recollection when depressing the flesh of hands within the right angles of reflected light. Thank you. That was that long 4-part piece. So let me see if I got time for 2 more short pieces. So this piece is called My Mother Hums in the Kitchen. My mother hums in the kitchen now while making dishes of foods as if calmed by or calming the served plate or bowl. The utensil primal in her hand, a practiced comfort, utilized with cordial grace, it exemplifies its purpose. The ingredient and caress of habit extending from her hands with each perfect stir. Perpetuations bound in mortality and lost on eternity. Her attentions engrossed as if this were another time and place of pleasing. Themes unseen, ambient with essence. Her nana's lullabies sing praises. Coddled babes or eggs warmed to the taste for home. It drowns out the sound of our slow bones grinding knell in the nullifying void of God, where common noise doesn't carry familiar and the sums of separate parts are lost. Its testimony to all 5 senses relinquished. Standing behind her, I listen without disrupting, at first concerned, but now content. The incremental joy filling the long moment with artifact, before she turns to hand me another soothed offering. This time, soup, escarole, and white cannellini beans, homemade and reticent with its secrets, its kept knowledge savored and swallowed like time into the brine of slow digestion. She tells me she misses me and to visit more often. I eat the tribute and blame the shortness of day. Then, voiding any past and imminent nulls, I promise to anyway a comforting hum hanging off the ear and dispel vacuity in mouthfuls. And I think I'll end it there, guys. Thank you for the opportunity. So much appreciated. Thank you, Diane and Sharante, for hosting. Thank you, guys.
Hello, my name is Rick Lupert. I live in Southern California. I run a couple of poetry websites. One is poetrysuperhighway.com, which publishes 2 poets every week and does a bunch of other interesting projects. One called Haikuniverse, which publishes a short poem every day. And I also host the weekly virtual poetry reading series Cobalt Poets, which happens on Tuesday evenings. That's how I was lucky enough to meet at least a couple of our other readers tonight, Diane and Sal. Diane, Sal, and Craig, I stand on your shoulders tonight. Thanks for a wonderful reading so far. Sal, you should know that while you were reading your long poem, the coyotes in the hill in the back of my house started howling and barking. In terms of poetry, that's basically the same thing as winning an Oscar. So congratulations to you for that. Thanks also to Yuba Sutter Arts for hosting this event and for having the good sense of having a poet in residence as well. I'm going to read my poetry now. This first one was based on a prompt by my friend, the Southern California poet, Brendan Constantine. It's called Never Have I Ever. Rowed a boat, asked a ruler for his measurements, preceded a precedent, booked a magazine, wringed my hands at the moon, legalized Maryland, sat at my Desperado, ate Hex-Mex, blacked out while the cameras were rolling, traded cosmic books, rode Ella Fitzgerald through the desert, planned a stranger's funeral, spoke angrily to flowers, hung 11, put gastronomy in my car, sold a body of water, hunted big origami, fit Japan in my suitcase, walked on my tippy fingers, went dead. The press, Rothko Press, put out a book of mine a number of years ago called Making Love to the 50-Foot Woman. This is a poem from that book. It's called Making Love to the 50-Foot Woman. Foreplay takes a week. You have to buy a ladder. When she says just a little to the left, you get there by car. You can have her in 2 different neighborhoods at once. Mood music, an orchestra, her bed, a forest. Protection? Let's just say you can get lost in the options. When she finishes, it makes the news. Items fall off shelves. Bridges collapse. When you finish, she doesn't notice. With a woman so large, feeling inadequate is normal. She is aware of this, makes you comfortable, looks down at you with her eyes like 2 Hubble telescopes, says to you with open mouth and legs, "Don't worry, sweetie, you're just the right size." This is a new piece I wrote last week, I think. One place that I work requires weekly COVID tests, and rather than making all the effort of leaving the house and going somewhere to get a test, I discovered that my healthcare provider will send you a test in the mail and you could just send it back. This is about that. It's called Spit in the Mail. According to Spit in a Tube and Send It in the Mail, I don't have COVID. Can I trust the people who set up their lives to receive spit in the mail? What was it about the job description that aroused their resume? Did it say, "You will receive spit in the mail"? And they were transformed back to little girls and boys, which is what we called them back then, answering, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" "I want to receive spit in the mail, sir or ma'am." We had so much respect back then. It was decades since anyone wore a mask outside of October, and I may be giving away my age here, but decades until we would have to again. Now we send out spit in the mail like it's no big thing. We hope the frontline workers who receive it will give it the grade we want. This new normal reminding us this pandemic, like this poem, has gone on too long. My family and I recently moved from Van Nuys, California, the heart of the San Fernando Valley, up here to Newhall, California, which is lovely and has hills and coyotes. But we lived in the house that we'd lived in for 17 years, and that was a long time, longest time I'd ever lived anywhere. And as we were in the process of selling the house, I wrote this poem. It's called This Old House. Everything in this old house was a decision. the color red, the squeegee in the bathroom, the poorly finished floors because we were young and thought anyone on Craigslist could do the job, the empty kitchen light socket because it was too much light, the thermostat that was smarter than me, the paradise we planted in the backyard, the trash cans we left on the curb to combat the lunch eaters and what they left behind, the dust in the garage we never took away, the many switches and outlets, mostly for noticeable contrast to the faded mailbox which used to be gold, and the memory of the blood on my hands as I screwed it into the post, the furniture all gone now, yet more decisions led to giving it all away. No one wanted to pay even $50 for the liquor cabinet, which was in perfect condition, the smoothest ceilings, the recessed lighting, the checkered floor in the dining room, the shelves that the man who could do anything put up. Everything in this house was 16 years of decisions, the things left undone, now someone else's choices to make. How dare they? How dare they? My most recent book is called The Tokyo Van Nuys Express. Craig, like you, I write travel poetry. I love going to places and being there and discovering things. I agree. There's never enough wonder, and I just it's my favorite thing to be outside of my element. All poems written in Japan. This book, it's available online if you want to check it out. A few little pieces from it. This is called Morning Scheme. Now's our chance, I tell Addie, when I see the stacks of clean towels in the fourth floor hallway of our hotel. We could make our fortune selling towels. To who, she wants to know, and it takes me a minute to compose myself before I reply. Wet people, with such pride at the simplicity of my answer. I can't see her reaction, or even if there was one, or as she's already in the elevator pressing buttons to move on from this madness. At Coffee Smart, Addie keeps telling me things like, I hear the egg sandwiches need salt, and I hear they bring a syrup to put in the coffee. I'm wondering what secret conversation she's been having about Coffee Smart and with whom and what else is going on. Our most recent trip was to Hawaii, and I wrote a bunch of things there which will come out in a future book, but I'm going to read one of them for you now. This is called It is 7 a.m. in Honolulu, Hawaii. If you told me I'd be awake at 7 a.m. without any prompting from electronics or a nudging hand, I would have laughed you into the Pacific Ocean. This is one of the effects of flying the other way, but not so far that you cross the international dateline. I'm not sure if international dateline should be capitalized, but it feels famous enough to deserve it. The time we have at this early hour is limiting our breakfast options, and we're prepared for disappointment. Look how the uneven lines on the right of this poem look like a wave that someone is waiting to ride. Poetry is water, is waves, is a man teaching surf lessons after feeding our Newhall cats. There is a ship at the bottom of the harbor. We will stand on top of it today and remember how it got there. Another book I wrote is called God Wrestler. It's a poem I wrote one a week, every single week, for the Torah portion. It's Jewish tradition to look at the Torah portion every week and think about it and wonder what these ancient words have to do with us. This week in the Torah, we get to the story of the Israelites crossing the sea that opens up for them. Here's the poem I wrote for that. Do you remember what it was like? Walls of water taller than a Grand Canyon, our feet on dry land. I have a vague memory of even the mud being dry, so the walk was comfortable. Is that how you remember it? What about stepping up on the other side only to see chariots in the distance? The brief fear that it was all a lie, that we can't really have nice things, assuaged by the closing water and the floating spears. A song and dance led by a sister, the one who followed the basket, a sweet singer of Israel. Do you remember that melody? It was us, after all, not a separate set of people thousands of years ago. Those were our feet. Those were our voices. Do you still sing of your own freedom? Can you find the double portions of manna laid out for you as you take your left turns, the water springing from your rocks? Are your feet still dry? I sing a song of the sea. I remember it like it was yesterday. I've got two more poems for you. It wasn't too long ago that finally we got together and shot William Shatner into space. This is a poem about that. It's called Shat in Space. They shot the Shat to space where men have gone before, sealed in dick-shaped rocket, floated for 10 minutes like men had done before. Once he said, "I'm not from space, I just work there." Everyone works remotely now. When Shat landed, the man who owns everything gave him a hug. The whole experience in 2 days or less, the Shat in the flying dick. All right, folks. Thank you so much for listening. Diane, thanks again for inviting me to be here. It's a thrill to be asked to read and to read at this series and to connect with other poets from all over the place, thanks to the miracle of this technology. Shantae, thanks so much for pushing all the buttons too and making it all happen and work. I'm going to close with one more poem from my book, The Tokyo Van Nuys Express. One of the reasons that we're able to go on these trips every summer, my wife and I, is because there are places like summer camp where we get to drop our kid off at. This poem was written after we landed back home from Japan and before we picked our son up from camp. This one's called Quiet. It is never this quiet in our house. Addie is buying groceries and Jude, for all I know, is on a horse. I know for sure I've got a few more days without aggravated remote control clicking, without yelling at people over a headset. In Japan, children are not allowed to make noise until they are 35. I made that up, but this is creative writing and I'm feeling creative. We had homemade Japanese dinner tonight, homemade with Addie's hands and the things she found at the stores and our recent memories of small portions served one at a time so no items felt crowded by any others, and as one menu said, portions were perfectly sized. It's all over on Sunday. We drive back to the Simi Valley to pick up our favorite Nuys. We've got a hose ready, a pair of scissors. We expect we'll need a second car for his fingernails. I'll miss the quiet, but I know it'll be just a handful of fast-moving years before the quiet doesn't go away. It goes so fast, they say. It is going so fast. Thank you so much.
Well, there you have it, January's Poetry Square. And again, my thanks to all the gentlemen who read tonight. Next month for February, we're turning the tables and having all ladies. We will have Linda Crawford and Ida Gokul and Sharon Smith Knight. And look forward to that, hearing all the ladies' voices. Again, as always, I want to thank YubaSutterArts&Culture for making this program happen. And again, thank you to Shantae for doing all the behind the scenes magic. And I'm going to say good night until next month. And thank you, everyone. Good night.